I think I talked a little bit about the ease of just cutting the part to fit in between where I needed it to go, and then cutting a floating tenon, which is just a mortise into this piece and a mortise into this piece with a floating tenon, which is just a piece of wood the size of a tenon but inserted into both sides, or the strength, or whether it was worth it or not to do a live tenon, which is a tenon that is actually part of this piece. So the easiest thing to do would have been to cut this part in between and cut the floating tenon. But I felt like the strongest option was to go ahead and cut the live tenon, which is what I'm about to show you. So that tenon is continuous grain out of this stretcher. Probably not totally necessary, but it is stronger in the long run. So then, you know,
closer on that.
So there you go.
There we go.
The angled tenon, and then this angled mortise into the wall of this rail here. So
Cool.
that got all that laid out and cut. So then the last thing before the seat and the little brass hold downs that I'm gonna make and cut in inlay into here was this bottom stretcher. So this is the thickness of the rocker. It's gonna be a little more challenging to cut the mortise into this piece because it's on a rocker, or you know, it's on this curve. So first thing I did was establish where this guy was going to go, and it wasn't too bad. It's a little tricky because it's wanting to rock around and all that, and I, you know, didn't
Want to rock around.
Man, didn't put any stops up. But so what I did is laid it out. It's cut. I have to cut the joiner in it, but it's cut how I wanted it to be. So I got it in place where I wanted, and then what I did is go good. Took my pencil and can you still see me from here?
Yes.
Just made a little tick mark right on the edge and a little mark there, and then on the back did the same thing. And then I took my square.
Can you come in from the side, maybe?
Took my square
Yeah.
and laid it up here and got my vertical over here. Same thing on the back. Now I had 2 points to connect, and I found that angle. It is the same angle as this, but sometimes things don't work out like that, and even if it's a half a degree or whatever, it won't work out. So once I'd established that angle, I have them scribed top and bottom and around all the sides. And then I've laid out my tenon.
Can you get a little closer?
And that just reminds me I needed to.
Okay, yeah, so, and then kind of show it to this one here. Right, so you can see. Yeah.
Good?
Awesome. Thank you.
So I did just think about how I do need to establish a shoulder here and here, just to have, I'm going to have a shoulder above my tenon here, and I need something on the side. So quickly I'll just I have 1 3/4 inches. I'm just going to come 1/4 inch in from each side, and that should be enough shoulder. So do want to mark that out just quickly, or at least have it on there, because when I go to the multi-router I can cut that as well, and it's easier once it's set up. one time to not have to move it, to go ahead and cut that part. So there.
So earlier we had someone say hi from Kentucky, and that their husband Joseph is also a woodworker.
Ah.
Welcome, welcome. Feel free to say hey, where you're from, what you're working on.
Okay. That would be gone, but yeah, it's really no point in marking it on the top because the bit's about to take it away. So I can at least have it on the ends here. Okay, so now see if I'm in view.
Good.
I'm going to be taking away this top area, side area, and the very bottom, and left with the tenon. Ready?
All right, heading to the multi-rider.
Heading to the multi-rider.
All right, going on a field trip, y'all.
Going on a field trip.
Hang on tight. There we go. Hi from Dallas. I'm from Granbury, actually, so not far from where you're at. So hello, neighbor. That makes me really happy. Woo-hoo. Must have recognized the twang. Hey, Andrew. Good to see you again. I love this.
Okay, so what I did, there's these little stops in the table, where that's 90 degrees to this table. I think there's like a 30 degree and a 45 degree little stops. What I did is, since I found my angle on the ends, I took this protractor square head and laid it on my table, and with some double-sided tape stuck this board on there, and that's my fence, I guess. So I'm gonna take my piece, it goes like so. Using it on this side. So, lock it down. This thing will really hold it with one clamp, but just to for good measure. I do want to check this one time to see where my bit is hitting. I'd rather have to cut twice and have to sneak up on that line, but I think I'm good to go. So also I have, I've set, you remember the tenons in the middle, so I have this bottom stop, it's going to cut the bottom, and at this height, it's going to cut the top. And there's little stops on up and down for this table that I've already set up just for time. All right, so clamp down. Some reason well, because I'm cutting in, I'm moving into the cutter, it works best if I move my piece this way. So, actually, yeah, move my table this way, I guess. Anyway, there's a certain direction that works better as far as tear out. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm gonna do. All right, we ready?
We're ready.
Looks good. So, yeah, happy with that. Scribe lines got hit. Let's see what else.
Real quick, just because we've had some new joiners.
Okay.
You just want to say what you're doing?
Yep. Well, I'm cutting these angled tenons on this multi-router.
That's it.
Yep. About to establish the side shoulders. I think I can cut the complete end cut with a different setting. But while I have this set and I've got this depth set, I want all the shoulders to line all the way up. So what I'm going to do is just kind of barely establish that on the edges while it's set, and then I actually would want to move it to 90 degrees. Anyway, we'll see how it works. Okay.
All right.
So just, if you could see, I barely established this and here, because that shoulder wraps all the way around at exactly the same place. I know that would seat up against wherever it's joining perfectly without one of the shoulders being off. But now you can see I need to remove this 90 degrees back and that. So, but that's a different setting. So while I've got it all set up, I'm gonna cut this side. Okay. All right. Looks like I missed my scribe line about a 64th of an inch. Not even, but couldn't quite see it. That's why it's nice to have the settings all locked in. Sweet. All right. Now,
Yeah, just right.
just right. That's close enough. I'd rather just ease up on it. The majority of it off. This little fence out of the way. Hold me up. Double side tape.
It works.
Looks great. Yeah, I was too far over where I couldn't get to the side, or I had it set over to the fence or to the table a little too far. Hamilton's been turning this knob.
Has he?
I was all the way loose.
Hamilton is our 4-year-old son. So we only have a few minutes left. So if you have any questions, now's probably a good time to go ahead and ask them. That way we don't miss them when we sign off. Now, what kind of Mortise and Tenon is this again?
It's just a well, it's an angled mortise and tenon, I guess, is really the
official.
Yeah, the it's not compound. It's just one angle. Okay. All right, so I was a little worried about going too close to that shoulder, but yeah, so I'd have a little bit of a little cheeks to remove and should be good to go. So I'm done with this part, and
All
I don't know
right.
if you want to lay it back on there and see what's up, but or time up.
Well, we've got a few extra minutes. If y'all have any questions, go ahead and get them in there. How about I walk back over and
Okay.
give folks a minute. We'll get set up. Hang on there again, folks. So yeah, Andrew said, seems like that old multi-router is invaluable.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I was wondering if we should have just gone ahead and set up there, but this is good that we can show context.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Yep. So now I should drop right on my marks.
Can you turn it a little bit towards your left? Tilt the,
This.
yeah, perfect. So y'all can see real well.
So now I'll be able to take this tenon measurement, transfer it to my rockers down the edge of the the edge of the rockers, and then mark out my mortise. Usually, 99% of the time I cut my mortises first. Just because there's lots of reasons, pro and con on that, but I will. That's what I tend to do. Well, here's my 1%. I cut the tenon first because I really needed to know exactly where it was going, and then these rockers I'm gonna have to kind of get them to where they don't rock and sit at the right angle where I can cut that mortise to correspond with that tenon. So I can lay this on there, and at this position I could really just stop rocking. Could take my pencil right on top of my tenon, and that gives me the top. And could do the same thing on the bottom, but honestly, if I put the bottom of the very top of my bit on the right on the other side of that pencil line, then I should be good to go, because I know this dimension, I know where the cut starts. I really don't need the bottom dimension. When I'm cutting everything by hand, I like to have 2 scribe lines, everything the chisel can go to. I'm still, possibly we have to clean up with the chisel with this, because this is 5/8 and I don't have a 5/8 bit, so there could possibly be some cleanup but that multi-router doesn't tear out. I really don't have to have the chisel to have to put in there. So the biggest challenge is going to be able to position this thing where it's not rocking and it's right at the angle I need it to be. And so basically I'll take wedges from both ends and make sure I don't, wedge one side, because that throws it off.
Right.
Right in position, cut it, should fit.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting.
So yeah, next is seat, and make some of these brass hold downs. Decide where I'm gonna go. This doesn't. This one was from a previous project, but can you see it?
Yeah.
What I'd probably do is position them in here, maybe just 4 of them. Slots running the width of the seat, which is the way it's going to expand and contract, and then the 2 countersunk holes will be what screws into this, and this will get let in to this stretcher, the thickness of the brass. So starts off with a brass stock, gets flattened, polished, cut, drilled, and filed. So that's that.
Awesome.